Mark Benadu, co-founder of Reson8, our new strategic partner at M2MMA. Pleasure to chat with you, mate. We've just got off a very interesting call discussing doing a pilot together. But first, tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about Reson8, what it is, and where did the idea come from?
Well, I mean, it came out of pain, and some of the best ideas always come out of pain. 6 years ago, my son was killed by a drunk driver, and I was thrown into this sort of despair and grief. And I was putting together a concert with Coldplay. It was about awareness for drunk driving, and the musical director of the concert was my business partner, Nick. And unfortunately, COVID shut the concert down. So the two of us sat down together and we were like, how are we going to heal with music? Because it was supposed to be a healing process for me. And we were looking at sort of music and memory and DNA and frequency and how can we really sort of, help heal. And we found that there was no one that was kind of looking into healing with music traditionally, but in a very scientific way. So the great thing that happened to us is that because we were confined to our homes for a couple of years because of COVID, we had a lot of time where we went down this real sort of rabbit hole of research. And we thought, well, what happens if we sequence someone's DNA and then find out what frequencies, specific gene endings had? And then what happens if we could tune music to those gene frequencies? So to cut a long story short, we did sort of a program with friends and family. We partnered with a genomic laboratory, and we started seeing these measurable sort of, change in our friends and family, and they were getting some great benefits from listening to music for their sort of mental health and pain and focus. And we thought, okay, well, we're kind of onto something here. And so that's kind of the start of Resonate. And as that developed, we decided to find a delivery method, which we built an app. And then we thought, well, we really need to do clinical trials. And so we self-financed clinical trials. And these clinical trials, we were looking at three specific genes: one for pain management, one for disease prevention, and one for longevity. And those were the kind of key things that we thought people were looking for in wellness and longevity. And, the trials came back, so conclusive that these three genes changed the pathways in another 47 genes. So we really knew we were onto something. We actually proved that, music can, really heal people, or, sort of help with certain situations and conditions that, people have. And yeah, the momentum started building straight after that.
It's incredible, mate, because again, well, I just referenced our conversations just now as well. We were talking about, in combat sports specifically, how a lot of currently the training protocols have been passed down through generations, and it's all very subjective. These trainers have the experience to be able to see with their eyes, but it's not data backed. Similarly, I'd say the
Mm,
same about music. We've all had that impact of a song that just means something to us. It makes us feel a certain way. Is that kind of what you're talking about
exactly.
here? That you are like providing the data and learning how to access different genes through the music?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. The beautiful thing is we all think that music heals, and as you said, as you alluded to, there's certain songs that I like that probably you don't like, but there's songs that maybe we both like together, and that those songs make us feel better. We can't really describe why or what the reason is, but we just know, and that's really to do with the frequencies being, in sort of, in harmony. It's a very harmonic moment. Where as individuals, as humans, we're all vibing together, and like, you can walk into a room and you can sense good energy and bad energy with people. And so we look at that technology, and now we can find that, we can actually hone in on specific things that, make you feel better with music and with frequency. And so what we realize is, if we're looking at specific gene endings and gene pathways, maybe by tuning those, our body's architecture will improve. And that's really what it was. And especially, when we can get into detail with sports and, clinical patients, that is where this really sort of takes off.
It's fascinating, mate, and that's obviously one of the many reasons why we've decided to partner with you guys. And if we
Mm,
look at combat sports as well, we're also talking about the importance of a walkout song, for example, right? How that
yeah.
walkout song can make an athlete feel. Now, this is what's going to be very interesting as we start this process together is how we can tap into that for an athlete to provide them, again, what they're looking for in terms of to enhance their training, their recovery, and aspects like that. And also, you mentioned the concept thing and a group of people, again, the vibe and how people are feeling. And so much of that comes through the music and obviously, you're the guy who understands the technology here. But
Mhm.
can you walk me through again? We were discussing now, for an example, how an athlete potentially could integrate your technology into their training camp.
Absolutely. I mean, the beautiful thing about music, as we all know, it can be passive. So, music goes on the whole time. And I think for an athlete, if we take a specifically a combat fighter, what are they doing? They wake up, they eat, they look at their nutrition, they go to the gym, they work out, they train, and then they finish training and they go to sleep, or I don't know, whatever they might be doing. But all during this time, they're probably integrating music into their lives passively. So what happens if we can make sure that the music you're listening to, has a benefit? Whether it's, the music going on in the gym whilst you're training, whether it's the music when you're on the treatment table, whether it's the music when you're in your car on the way to the gym, or what about just the music before you go to sleep? And that music can be anything from a sound bath, a binaural beat, to your favorite song, to any playlist. And that's the beauty, because then we can look at specific conditions that a particular combat fighter is dealing with. Is he dealing with cognitive issues? Is he dealing with ligament issues? Is he dealing with an injury that he just can't shake off? So that's the beauty of it. We can look at the gene pathways that really control those issues in the body and then tailor music specifically to that individual, to those specific genetic pathways.
That's incredible, mate. I love it.
Yeah.
And just tell me again on that. Talk me through the process. I'm an athlete who wants to
Mm.
use Resonate. How do I use it?
Yeah. So what we do first of all is we do a DNA test, and it can be, a cheek swab, it can be a saliva sample, it can be a blood test, and then we look at we look at your DNA, we do a whole genome sequencing on your DNA, and then what we're comparing is the sort of the variance between the human genome reference and that particular individual athlete's reference, and so we're tuning music to that specific variant to enable your body architecture to get back to where you really should be. If you think about it like a radio, like an old-fashioned radio, you tune the dial until you get to the right station. But just before you get to the right station, there's a bit of crackle, and then when you get to the right station, it sounds perfectly. And that's kind of, in essence, the analogy of what we're doing. We're just tuning the body back to where you really should be.
It's through an app, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So what happens is, we do your full genome as I mentioned, and then everything is delivered through the app. So you listen with headphones, you listen on speakers, and your specific sound assets are all on the app, and everyone obviously has Android or iOS, and you listen to it 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. The key thing for us is consistency, and I think that's the key thing for life. And so what we're looking for is that, to balance that emotional regulation in your bigger part of your system, your health and wellness routine.
Yeah, again, I don't know if anyone heard our conversation previously, obviously not, but we were talking about, again, the important thing. A lot of athletes don't perhaps understand how important your outside of training protocol is. And it's the simple things, like you said, like your
Yeah.
emotional regulation, your stress levels, your sleep, your nutrition, what's going on in your head on a day-to-day basis that can be the difference between you eliciting your best performance and underperforming. And I can see this is where your technology specifically could play a huge role throughout their daily lives.
Yeah, 100%. And that emotional regulation has quite a wide spectrum. It can be, you could be pissed off that you didn't have a good training session. You could have a relationship issues. You could have work issues. You could have financial issues. All of those things, predicate, your full body experience and your wellness. So I think it's really important. It can it can really tailor, the way you are as a as a full person in terms of your emotional balance as opposed to your training balance. Are you able to really put everything into your training session if you're not fully, relaxed, and if you're not fully in a focused state?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's something, if you look at elite athletes, and I've spent my whole life watching sport, You can
Mm.
often just see from the way they enter the arena, where not be their ring walk, it might be how they stand there before the fight takes place. I look at someone like Alex Pereira, or if I look at someone like Floyd Mayweather in his peak, how
Mm.
so composed he looked in those moments of pressure. And again, that comes
Yeah.
down to all these different aspects we're talking about here. Finally, just
Yeah.
want to check that. So I can use the Resonate technology just by listening to any song I want. Is that correct? Like it just plays through my music.
Exactly. So you can upload, you basically can upload any of your favorite songs, or you can listen to sound bars or binaural beats, and those specific sound assets are tailored to you. So, it can be completely different from me to you, but they are tailored to you. So, that whilst you're listening, you can be in the kitchen preparing your breakfast, you can be in your car on your way to work or the gym, whilst you're listening to those sound assets, you are healing it. The sound, the vibration is being absorbed into your body, and the neurological system is allowing the pathways to be benefited from that specific vibration of those specific frequencies.
It's awesome, mate. I think
Yeah,
again, I can imagine for athletes as well. We've in combat sports specifically, like having access to technology can sometimes be a little trickier. But this is
yeah,
so accessible, and that's why we love it at M2MMA that we can provide it to all athletes, and it's just so easy to use, and it's available at all times. And I say, people,
yeah,
everyone listens to music as part of their daily routine. Why not be optimizing the other aspects through your technology?
exactly. It's so easy, because you don't have to do anything. There's no effort on an individual's, side. It really is, as you said, you just listen to, you turn on the music and you listen, and you can be doing anything. And that's the piece, that passive aspect of it, is brilliant.
Yeah, I agree completely, mate. And well, firstly, thanks of all for explaining a little bit more about Resonate. We're delighted to partner with you, M2 MMA. As part of the
Yeah,
next stage, obviously we're looking to put together a pilot and get some athletes using your technology and seeing how it works with them. Very excited to put that together. I think it's also important if you are an athlete or a coach listening to this, please contact me and I will, explain to you how we're going to incorporate a Resonate in M2 MMA and also how you can get access to technology and learn more about it.
absolutely. I can't wait to, show the data and show that we're making measurable change for people just listening to music.
Fantastic, mate. Well, it's a pleasure once again, and we look forward to again putting more stuff out there about how we're working together. But thank you for your time again today, Mark, and excited to partner with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely honored. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, mate.